The candlelit beginning. Entering a peasant woman's world. You begin in stillness, where the night is heavy, and the only light comes from a stub of candle. Its wax has run unevenly, forming small ridges, like worn paths in a field. The flame flickers softly, painting the rough wall in wavering gold. The air carries the faint smell of smoke and damp straw, a reminder that the fire in the hearth has grown tired, leaving only embers. You pull your cloak tighter, and the rough wool scratches against your neck. The village sleeps around you. In the distance you hear the slow creak of a wooden shutter. A dog barks once, then settles again into silence. Somewhere a rooster stirs too early, confused by the pale moonlight. You shift your weight on the bench, and the wood groans under you, old planks weary from years of use. Before you move further, you are invited to pause. Adjust your pillow if you have one near. Let your breathing fall into its own rhythm. Allow the air of this medieval night to settle upon you. Not hurried, not rushed. The story will move as slowly as the candle burns, a steady drift through time. Have you ever wondered what life felt like for those often left out of the chronicles? The women of the medieval fields and hearths, not queens or noble ladies, not the saints whose names are etched in church glass, but the quiet peasant women whose days passed in ordinary rhythm. Records of their lives are sparse, yet the traces remain, in court rolls, in tax accounts, in fragments of letters where their voices are faint but present. You step into this world not as an observer but as one of them. You breathe the same damp air. You feel the chill of stone underfoot. You hear the whisper of reeds in the thatched roof. The hearth and the room. The house around you is small. Its walls are wattle and daub, patched where rain has seeped in. Smoke hangs near the ceiling, the chimney drawing poorly, so that every breath tastes faintly of wood ash. A single room holds all. To one side is the hearth, to the other a bed of straw covered with a coarse blanket. Chickens rustle in the corner, settling their feathers for the night. You reach down and run your fingers through the straw. It pricks your skin lightly, a mix of hay and last year's reeds. This bed will serve for the whole family. Some nights it feels warm, pressed close together, and some nights it feels crowded, restless with the shifting of limbs. Historians still debate how clean or dirty these homes truly were. Some records suggest villagers strewed herbs like lavender or thyme on the floors to sweeten the air. Archaeological traces of rushes and herbs suggest that the smell was not always as sour as later writers claim. Myths of constant filth must be balanced with the reality of small acts of care, repeated daily. Introducing the neighbours. In the house next to yours lives Marta Strawhair. Her hair carries the faint smell of hay, for she often falls asleep before brushing it clean. She laughs easily, though her teeth are uneven. Some say she can weave a basket faster than anyone in the village. Then there is old Gertrude, the mutterer, who walks bent with age, muttering advice whether asked or not. Never let bread sit uncovered, she warns. The air steals it quicker than mice. Her words tumble in a constant stream like water through a cracked barrel. Children mimic her behind her back, but when fever strikes, they listen for her muttering prayers at the bedside. These neighbours are part of your rhythm. They are there in the background, part of the village fabric, voices woven into your day. The first dilemma. Tonight the loaf of bread is small. Its crust is hard, cracked from the uneven oven heat. You turn it over in your... There is just enough for the household, if each takes a thin slice. But outside the door you hear the shuffle of feet. A beggar, perhaps, or a traveller without shelter. Do you share a piece of bread and risk hunger tomorrow, or do you keep it, quietly, for your family alone? In these choices lies the quiet tension of peasant life, not battles or banners, but the daily weighing of enough and not enough. Some scholars believe these decisions were shaped by unspoken codes of charity. Church sermons urged generosity, but hunger made the hands slow to open. Records of alms given at manor gates suggest that even in hardship, a crust was often spared, whether from faith or habit. The poor shared with the poorer. The myth of constant misery. You have been told, perhaps, that medieval peasant women lived only in misery, that their days were endless drudgery, with no laughter, no rest, no joy. But reality was quieter, more complex. There were hardships, yes, but there were also songs hummed while tending goats, gossip whispered at the well, and small festivals where colour and music entered life like sudden light. Marta Strawhair insists that her beans grow straighter when she sings to them. Gertrude mutters that the saints themselves are tired of Marta's voice. And you, listening cannot help but smile at the absurdity, even as your hands ache from pulling wheat. The candle burns lower. The night continues. The embers glow faintly in the hearth, their heat barely reaching across the room. You wrap your cloak tighter. The candle sputters, then steadies again. The dog outside shifts, sighs and curls once more. The village sleeps. The weight of centuries folds around you. You are here, in this forgotten rhythm, where women carried burdens unrecorded, yet constant. You sit, you breathe, and the candle flickers on. The candle burns low, and the walls sigh with the night. The peasant's morning chores before dawn. You wake before the rooster crows. The air in the small room is damp, and your breath rises in faint clouds above you. The straw mattress presses unevenly against your back, some parts soft, some sharp. Beside you a child shifts and murmurs, pulling at the rough wool blanket. The hearth embers glow faintly, not enough to warm the room. The first sound you hear is the creak of rafters overhead. A mouse scurries across the beam, tiny claws scratching wood. From outside comes the slow moo of a cow waiting to be milked, patient but insistent. The smell of yesterday's smoke lingers, mixed with the faint odor of damp cloth left too close to the wall. You rise carefully, so as not to wake the others. The cold floor shocks your feet. You find your shoes, simple leather, stiff with wear, and slip them on. The day has not yet begun, but the chores already wait. Sweeping the hearth. The first task is always You take a bundle of twigs bound with rope, and sweep away the ash. The sound is soft, a hiss of bristles over stone. Ash clings to your fingers, fine as flour, grey against your skin. Step by step, you tend the fire. Rake the embers gently, exposing the red glow. Place a few small twigs, waiting until they crackle faintly. Add larger sticks, not too many, for the wood must last. Blow softly, steady as a lullaby. Watch as the flame returns, patient and slow. This process is done every morning, repeated without thought. It is not heroic, not grand, but it is survival. The rooster and the bucket. Outside, the rooster finally finds his voice. His crow cuts through the misty dawn, uneven and loud. You lift the wooden bucket, and step into the yard. The handle creaks in your grip. The ground is soft with dew, the grass brushing against your skirt hem. At the cowshed, the animal shifts heavily. You sit on the low stool, press your forehead briefly against her side, and begin to milk. The sound is steady, squirt, squirt into the bucket, echoing faintly. The smell of warm milk rises, mixed with the earthy odor of hay and dung. Historians note that women in medieval villages often took responsibility for livestock as well as field work. The myth that men worked outdoors while women stayed indoors does not match the record. Women were in the cowshed, in the fields, at the ovens. Daily life blurred such divisions. The bread and the oven. Back in the house you turn to bread. The dough was set the night before, a rough mix of barley flour and water. You knead it briefly, pressing the coarse grain between your palms. It smells faintly sour, the way dough should. You walk to the communal oven, a short distance down the lane. Marta's straw hair is already there, hair tousled, basket under her arm. She nods, smiling sleepily. "Best not burn it this time," she says. Her voice carries a teasing edge. The oven is still warm from the last baking. You slide the dough in, careful not to drop ash onto its surface. Marta mutters that her bread always comes out round, while yours leans oddly to one side. She claims it is the way you hold the paddle. You mutter back, amused but tired. The rules of mourning. In this world, mornings follow unspoken rules. You may not find them in a book, yet they guide you all the same. Sweep the hearth before speaking. Feed animals before feeding yourself. Bread waits for no one. The oven has its own schedule. Share the oven space fairly, or expect gossip. Never waste the embers. Wood is dearer than silver. These rules hold the village together as firmly as the Lord's law. A small dilemma. You return from the oven with your loaf cooling in the basket. The crust is darker than you wished, but edible. A neighbor's child watches hungrily from the lane, eyes wide. Your own children wait at home, mouths already open for breakfast. Do you break the crust to share with the child, or pass by pretending not to see? Old Gertrude the mutterer shuffles by, muttering about charity and about foolishness in the same breath. Her voice lingers like smoke, hard to ignore. Historians suggest that charity was both a duty and a survival strategy. A small gift today might mean a returned favor tomorrow, yet hunger sharpens the mind toward one's own. Soap that smelled of ambition. At the well you draw water, the rope groaning as the bucket rises. You wash your hands, the cold water biting your skin. A scrap of soap rests nearby, left from yesterday. It smells faintly of lye, sharp, stinging, ambitious. Some joke that it smells like ambition itself, eager but not always pleasant. You rub it between your palms, watching the thin foam vanish quickly. Soap is rare and precious, more often made at home from ash and fat. To use too much is wasteful, to use none is careless. Again a balance must be struck. The sky bruises with light. As the chores settle, the sky begins to shift. The black of night softens into grey, then into pale purple. Clouds drift low, heavy with morning damp. The rooster crows once more, as if claiming credit for the sun itself. You pause, bucket in hand, and breathe the morning air. It smells of earth and smoke, of labor and of life. Around you other doors open, the village stirs. The rooster fades, and the sky bruises with pale light. Work in the fields, toil, soil and quiet songs. You step from the dim room into the pale morning, and the field lies ahead like a patient, endless task. The earth smells damp, still holding the night's dew, and a faint mist lingers near the hedgerows. Your shoes sink slightly into the soil, leaving shallow impressions that will vanish once the sun grows warm. A bird calls from the hedges, sharp, then silent. The village has already begun to move toward the fields. You join them, your basket empty, your hands roughened by days before and days yet to come. The land stretches around you, divided into strips, each narrow and long, marked by ridges of earth, where one neighbor's right ends, and another begins. The work is not glamorous, not dramatic. It is the steady, repetitive rhythm of survival. The first steps into the furrows. You bend to touch the earth. It is cool, crumbly, slightly clinging to your fingers. The smell rises at once, rich, loamy, carrying hints of last year's growth, and this year's promise. A neighbor coughs nearby, the sound muffled in the mist. To begin the day in the field, there is always a ritual, not sacred in the church sense, but sacred in its repetition. Walk the boundary of your strip, checking that no neighbor's plow has strayed. Kick away stones that surfaced in the night. Test the dampness of the soil by pressing a clod between your fingers. Breathe slowly, noticing whether the air carries rain or warmth. Begin not with haste but with steady hand. Old Gertrude the mutterer stands a few strips away, muttering to herself about stones that appear from nowhere. Devils plant them overnight, she insists, stooping to toss one aside. Children snicker but none argue. Stones always do seem to appear where they were not the day before. The tools of labor. The hoe rests against your leg. Its wooden handle is smooth, worn by countless palms. The iron edge is duller than you wish, but sharpening takes time, and time is as costly as iron. You recall the rules whispered by elders for tending tools. Never leave iron in damp soil overnight. Always wipe with straw before resting it by the wall. Sharpen only when needed. The grindstone wears quickly. Never loan your best hoe to Marta Strawhair, for it always returns chipped. Marta of course laughs when reminded of this. The soil itself bites my tools, she claims. She waves a chipped blade as proof, hair scattering in the wind like straw from a cup. Planting and the superstition of song. Today is for planting beans. You stoop low, press each seed into the soil, cover it with your palm, and move to the next. The rhythm is slow. Kneel, press, cover, rise, step. Kneel, press, cover, rise, step. Marta sings as she plants. Her tune wavers, half hymn, half nonsense. She insists that beans grow straighter if sung to, that the saints guide them upward on the melody. Old Gertrude mutters that beans neither hear nor care, but she hums anyway, softly under her breath. Historians still debate how much superstition shaped peasant farming. Some records from court cases mention charms buried in fields, prayers whispered over seeds. Archaeology has uncovered small lead crosses and scraps of parchment buried near boundaries. Whether the seeds cared or not, the people did. A gentle dilemma, work or rest. By mid-morning the sun grows stronger. Your back aches from bending. The soil clings to your nails, rough and unyielding. A small patch of shade lies beneath the hedgerow. You glance at it, tempted to rest, to let your body breathe for a moment, But the field still waits, rows unplanted, weeds not yet pulled. Do you pause now, risk falling behind, or press on and risk the stiffness that comes from too long without rest? Some scholars believe that medieval peasants worked to exhaustion without pause. Yet manorial accounts show otherwise. There were breaks, moments of shared bread, pauses to sharpen blades, even laughter. The rhythm was not relentless, but steady, punctuated by necessity. Cadence 1. The wind bends the stalks, the sun softens the earth, and your arms ache into stillness. Weeding and the problem of herbs. Later the weeds demand attention. Their roots dig deep, their leaves spread wide. You pull them slowly, careful not to disturb the crop. The smell of crushed green rises, sharp and fresh. A dilemma comes again. Not every weed is useless. Some are herbs, sage, plantain, nettle, that heal wounds, ease coughs, flavor broth. Do you pull them out, leaving only the beans, or do you spare a few hidden among the crop? Gertrude mutters advice. Leave the plantain, it heals the feet. Pull the nettle, unless you want stings. Marta insists. Nettles make good soup when boiled twice. You caught between voices, make your own quiet choice. Historians suggest that medieval women often acted as keepers of herbal knowledge. Recipes in household books, though rare, often list women's hands as the ones who prepared remedies. The line between weed and medicine was not firm, but shifting, practical. The sound of the scythe. Across the field men swing scythes through taller grain. The sound carries like a slow sigh, swish swish, steady as breathing. You pause to watch, the blades flashing briefly in the sun. Later in the season you too will hold the sickle smaller than the scythe, and pull stalks close with one hand, cutting with the other. The sound then will be sharper, a faint crunch as straw breaks. Your palms will blister, your back will bend, your skirt will catch seeds in its fold. One chronicler wrote that harvest was both toil and festival, for neighbors worked side by side, trading jokes and songs. Whether the jokes were truly merry or simply a way to soften the ache, none can say. Mini-story: the dispute over a boundary. Fields are long and narrow, strips side by side. Today, Marta claims that Gertrude's grandson has plowed too far into her strip. She waves her hoe like a banner, hair flying, voice rising. Gertrude mutters louder, her words tumbling like stone. The bailiff is called, a man with ink-stained fingers and weary eyes. He measures with rope, shakes his head, declares the furrow true. Both women mutter, both insist on their right. By evening they are sharing bread again, though each swears the other is a Court rolls from medieval villages show many such disputes. Boundaries mattered, for each strip meant survival. Yet most ended not in violence, but in weary compromise, often forgotten by the next feast day. The step-by-step of harvest. When the season turns you will follow another ritual. Sharpen the sickle slowly, stone against iron, until it whispers. Wrap cloth around your palm to spare it from blisters. Bend low, grasp stalks with one hand. Cut in a swift, steady motion. Lay sheaves in bundles, tied with straw. Gather until your back protests. Then straighten, breathe and begin again. The smell of cut grain is sweet, heavy, filling the air with dust that clings to your throat. The sound is a chorus of cuts, rustles, laughter and sighs. The touch is straw against your skin, pricking and itching, leaving small red lines. Cadence 2. The stalks fall, the blades rest, and the dust drifts slowly in the sunlight. Myth versus reality. Endless drudgery. It is easy to imagine peasants as bound endlessly to their fields, bent in ceaseless labor. Yet reality was layered. There were feast days when tools rested. There were rainy days when soil was too wet to touch. There were small tasks done indoors, weaving, mending, tending animals. Records suggest that in some years, peasants worked fewer actual days than modern laborers. Yet when work came, it was hard, physical, demanding. The myth of constant misery hides the truth of rhythm. Hardship, pause, hardship again. Songs in the furrows, you hum as you work. A simple tune, half forgotten, half invented. Marta joins in, her voice wandering higher. Gertrude mutters, but her mutters fall into rhythm, like verses of a song. The song is not for performance, it is for the body, to carry it through repetition. Words about rain, about saints, about bread. Some verses make no sense, but all keep the hands moving. Historians believe that work songs softened labor, set pace, and created community. Some were prayers, some jokes,
some nonsense syllables that only made sense in the field. The sound was as important as the rhythm itself. A new neighbor, Tom Owl Spiller. Into the fields comes Tom Owl Spiller, named not kindly but for the time he tripped and poured half a jug on the reeve's shoes. The name has followed him since. He laughs easily, sings loudly, and offers ale from a leather flask when the sun grows hot. He claims ale makes the scythe swing smoother. Gertrude mutters that it makes the feet stumble. Marta insists it makes beans grow faster if spilled near them. No one believes her, but the story lingers, part of the day's fabric. The problem of rain. Dark clouds gather on the horizon. The air shifts, smelling of damp wool. A breeze stirs the grass, cooler now. Rain threatens the harvest. If it comes too soon, grain molds, hay spoils. Do you rush to gather what you can, or trust the sky to hold? The dilemma is small but pressing, the kind that shapes each season. Some records from manorial accounts list losses to rain as common. Peasants balanced labor with chance, sometimes winning, sometimes losing. The sky was another lord, one no bargain could sway. Cadence 3. The clouds drift low, the breeze cools your skin, and the fields wait in patient silence, step by step caring for the tools. When the day ends, tools must be tended. Scrape soil from the iron with a shard of wood. Wipe with straw until no damp clings. Rest the blade upright, not flat, so rust does not spread. Tie handles together with rope, lest one wander off in the night. Mutter a small word, not quite a prayer, to ask they hold for another day. It is not written in any charter, but peasants know, tools are dearer than coin. Lose one, and the field itself slows. The evening walk home. The sun lowers, the light turns golden, shadows stretch across the furrows. Your body aches, hands rough, back stiff, yet the work has shaped the day into meaning. You walk home with others. Marta laughs at something Tom said. Gertrude mutters about his flask. Children run ahead, kicking clods of earth. The smell of smoke drifts from chimneys, promising supper. The field lies quiet behind you, seeds buried, weeds piled, tools resting. Tomorrow it will wait again, as patient as. Cadence 4. Closing. The wind bends the empty stalks, the soil cools beneath the stars, and you drift slowly into rest once more. Meals and hunger. The peasant table. You return from the fields, your body heavy with soil and sweat, and already the thought of food lingers in your mind. The day is shaped as much by hunger as by labor. Work may bend your back, but hunger bends your thoughts, turning them toward the hearth, and what little can be found there. The cottage air greets you with its familiar mix, the tang of smoke from the hearth, the faint sourness of yesterday's pottage, and the sharper note of onions waiting to be chopped. A clay pot rests by the fire, its lid askew, a promise of warmth if not of plenty. The table itself is little more than a plank set upon trestles, but it holds the rhythm of life. Morning bread, midday broth, evening ale, the myth of nothing but gruel. You may have heard the tale that peasants lived only on thin gruel, day after day, an endless bowl of flavorless muck. The truth is both simpler and more complex. Yes, pottage, thick soup of grains, beans and vegetables, was the daily staple, but it was never quite the same twice. Some days it was hearty, thick with peas and herbs. Other days it was watery, stretched thin to feed too many mouths. On rare days a scrap of bacon or fish turned it into a feast. Historians remind us that the medieval peasant table shifted with the seasons. Spring brought nettles and leeks, summer meant beans and peas, autumn offered onions, apples and the rare taste of pork from a slaughtered pig. Winter was harder, the pot filled mostly with dried peas and stored grain. To say it was only gruel is to miss the rhythm of the year, the small surprises hidden in the pot. Step by step, preparing pottage. You move slowly to the clay pot is heavy, the handle rough beneath your fingers. To prepare the day's meal you follow the same patient steps, a ritual as old as the village itself. Place the pot upon the embers, careful not to tip it. Add water drawn fresh from the well, its taste faintly metallic. Pour in grains, barley if there is enough, oats if not. Chop onions, their smell sharp, making your eyes water. Toss in herbs gathered from the hedgerow, sage, thyme, or nettle. Stir slowly with a wooden spoon, letting the mixture thicken. Wait, for pottage demands patience more than skill. The smell rises gradually, earthy, comforting, and a little sour. You lean closer, letting the steam dampen your face, the warmth easing the chill that lingers from the field. The hard bread, Beside the pot rests the bread baked that morning. Its crust is dark, almost burnt at the edges, the result of a shared oven where flames are not easily controlled. The loaf is dense, heavy in your hands, a mix of rye and barley. Its smell is faintly sour, its texture coarse. You strike it lightly with your knuckles, and it echoes hollow. Marta Strawhair once joked that the bread could stop a sword better than a shield. Old Gertrude muttered back that a sword at least breaks when struck. Bread only cracks your teeth, yet bread is the measure of life. Records of famines list bread riots, loaves stolen, bakers fined for selling too light. A loaf of bread is not only food, it is proof that the household survives another day. Gentle dilemma, share or save. As you cut the bread, a knock sounds faintly at the door. A neighbor's child peers in, his face thin, eyes wide. His family's field gave little this season, and his belly shows it. You hold the loaf in your hand, weighing it. Do you cut an extra slice and share, though your own children wait hungry at the table? Or do you shake your head gently, pretend there is none to spare, and close the door with a soft word? Manorial records often note fines for stealing food, but they also record acts of charity, loaves given, bowls shared, hunger softened by small kindness. The dilemma is not of law, but of conscience. Cadence 1. The pot simmers, the bread cools, and the evening air folds around you like a blanket. Cheese harder than a knight's conscience. On the table lies a small wedge of cheese. It is dry, aged longer than intended, and hard enough that the knife protests when pressed against it. Tom Ale Spiller jokes that it is harder than a knight's conscience, a phrase he repeats whenever the cheese appears. Marta laughs every time, though Gertrude mutters that knights and cheese have little in common. The smell is sharp, tangy, carrying a faint mustiness. You nibble it carefully, the texture crumbly, almost gritty. It adds flavor to the bread even if it does not soften it. Cheese, though humble, is precious, a way of preserving milk for the months when cows give little. Historians note that cheese and butter were common in peasant diets, though never in excess. They appear in records of rents given as payments to lords or church. What remained at the table was modest, but it mattered. The sound of ale pouring. A jug of ale stands nearby, its surface beaded faintly with moisture. You lift it, pour slowly into a wooden cup. The sound is soft, a steady glug, followed by the faint fizz of bubble. The taste is sour, weak but safer than water drawn from the ditch. Children drink it too, for it is brewed light, more nourishment than danger. Tom Ale Spiller always insists that ale strengthens the arm for work. Gertrude mutters that it weakens the legs. Both may be true. Mini story, the salt dispute. Salt is scarce. Tonight, Marta grumbles that Gertrude used more than her share when curing pork last autumn. Gertrude mutters back that Marta hoards salt in a jar beneath her bed. The argument is quiet, almost affectionate, yet it matters. Salt preserves meat, flavors broth, cures fish. Without it, hunger sharpens. In medieval records, salt appears again and again as tax, as rent, as treasure. Some villages relied on distant traders, some on marshes where brine could be boiled down. For peasants, salt was both ordinary and extraordinary, the line between food and spoilage. Step by step, a meal at the table. The family gathers around the table. The steps are unspoken, yet they are followed each day. Place the loaf at the center, knife beside. Pour ale into cups, each receiving a share. Ladle pottage from the pot, thick or thin as fortune allows. Offer the first taste to the eldest, or to a guest if present. Tear bread by hand, dipping into broth, softening crust in steam. Eat slowly, for the food must last until the next pot. The sounds are small, spoons clinking, bread tearing, children murmuring. The air grows warm with steam and breath, the hunger easing into quiet satisfaction. Cadence 2. The spoon rests, the crust softens, and the hearth glows faintly in the dim room. Myth versus reality. Starving always. It is said that peasants starved constantly, but the truth is mixed. Some years were lean, when harvest failed, and bellies shrank. Yet in ordinary years, most peasants ate enough to live, though rarely enough to thrive. Malnutrition was common, famine occasional, but not every day was starvation. Records of diets show that peasants consumed bread, pottage, ale, cheese and sometimes meat more regularly than we imagine. It was plain, repetitive, but it sustained life. To think of constant starvation is to miss the ordinary rhythm of enough. Festival feasts. On feast days the table transformed. Bread grew whiter, baked from wheat if the Lord allowed. Ale grew stronger, laughter loud. A pig might be slaughtered, or fish shared. Spices sometimes appeared, rare and precious, brought from distant lands.
You recall one such feast. Marta Strawhair dancing clumsily, Tom Ale Spiller spilling ale on his own boots, Gertrude muttering that saints disapprove of laughter past sunset. The food tasted brighter, fuller, but what lingered longest was the company, the sense that for one day, hunger stepped aside. Historians point to feast days as vital to peasant morale, markers of time that gave rest from labor and relief from monotony. They remind us that life was not only toil, but also moments of joy, shared in food and song. Gentle dilemma, eat now or save. The pottage thickens as it cools. The bread grows harder, the cheese smaller. You weigh the question quietly. Do you eat until satisfied now, risk waking hungry in the night? Or do you save a little, keep it for tomorrow's uncertain morning? Children glance at the pot, their eyes wide. Gertrude mutters about patience. Marta says life is too short for waiting. Tom pours another cup of ale, and laughs. You choose quietly, the choice shaping hunger not just for tonight, but for tomorrow. Cadence 3. The pot cools, the fire sighs, and the room settles into the slow breathing of rest. The quiet after supper. When the food is gone, the table lingers. Crumbs rest on the plank. The smell of onions clings to the air. The pot is scraped, rinsed, left near the hearth for tomorrow's fire. Children doze against the wall. Marta sings faintly in the lane outside. Gertrude mutters as she shuffles home. Tom spills a last drop of ale, and swears it was the floor's fault. The night grows deep. Hunger is eased, not ended, but enough for now. The table has done its work, holding family, neighbors, and the small rhythm of survival. Cadence 4. Closing. The hearth cools, the table rests, and you drift slowly into sleep, carried by the quiet of a satisfied belly. Clothing and care. Layers of wool and linen. You rise the next morning, not to the call of the rooster, nor to the crackle of the hearth, but to the faint tug of fabric against your skin. Clothes are not only what you wear, they are what you live in, day and night, through work and rest. They chafe you, protect you, mark you, and sometimes betray you. In the medieval village, a woman's clothing is both shield and burden, both tool and identity. The shift clings. It is linen, rough against the skin, woven from flax pulled by hand, retted in streams, combed, spun, and finally stitched by hours of work. Over this comes the kirtle, wool dyed a faded brown. Its seams uneven, patched in more than one place. An apron ties at your waist, its fabric stiff with yesterday's flour dust. A cloak waits by the door, heavy with damp from last night's mist. The myth of filth. It is easy to imagine peasants in rags, unwashed and foul, but the reality, as records suggest, was archaeological traces of soapstone and lye use, manorial accounts of fines for dirty clothes at church, and descriptions in sermons show that cleanliness was expected, if not perfected. Women washed garments in streams, rubbed with ash soap, and beat fabric against stones to drive out stain. The myth of constant filth erases the labor that went into keeping even one tunic wearable. To wear patched clothes was not shameful. To wear soiled ones on holy days could. Step by step, washing in the stream, you gather the family's clothes into a basket, woven from willow, its handle rough against your palm. The walk to the stream is steady, the basket pressing into your hip. At the water's edge, you kneel, the ground damp beneath your knee. The process is slow, methodical. Draw water with a wooden scoop, pour it over the cloth, rub ashes or lye soap into the weave, working the suds with your hands. Beat the garment against a flat stone, the sound echoing in steady rhythm. Rinse in the stream, cold water, biting your skin. Wring tightly, twisting until droplets fall like beads of glass. Lay upon bushes or spread across grass to dry in the sun. The smell is sharp, alkaline from the soap, softened by the scent of running water. Your fingers sting, reddened from cold and ash, but the cloth lightens, the stains fade, and the garments breathe again. Marta Strawhair joins you, her own basket at her hip. She hums as she scrubs, claiming that soap works better if sung to. Gertrude mutters from the bank that the saints tire of hearing women sing about stains, yet even she hums when she thinks no one hears. The feel of wool. Wool is the peasant's constant, heavy in winter, lighter in summer, always present. It scratches at the skin, it warms the bones, it carries the faint smell of lanolin even after washing. You run your hands across the surface of your kirtle, and feel the uneven weave, the lumps where yarn grew thick, the thinness where it has worn smooth. Wool is not soft like it is not rich like velvet, yet it is faithful. It insulates when damp, shields against wind, and holds dyes better than linen. To live without wool would be to live bare to the seasons. Historians note that sheep flocks provided not just meat, but constant wool, a renewable wealth in villages. Taxes were often paid in fleeces. A woman's skill in spinning, weaving, and mending woolen garments marked the difference between warmth and cold. Mini-story: the sumptuary law. One market day, a rumor spread through the village. A woman in a nearby town had been fined for wearing sleeves too long, cloth too fine, a color forbidden to her rank. Sumptuary laws, designed to keep peasants humble and nobles distinct, dictated what colors, fabrics and adornments each class could wear. Gertrude muttered that sleeves never filled a belly. Marta laughed that she'd wear forbidden blue just to see the reeve chase her. Tom Owl Spiller claimed he would dye his boots scarlet if only to prove he had boots. Such laws remind us even clothing carried weight, a social code stitched into every scene. Cadence 1. The wool hangs heavy, the linen clings damp, and the wind carries the faint scent of soap and stream. Mending by firelight. At night, when fields rest and tools are stored, the needle comes out. You sit by the hearth, firelight flickering, and draw thread through worn fabric. The sound is faint, almost inaudible, the small tug of linen against linen. Your eyes strain, following seams in dim light. Step by step, you mend, thread the needle with yarn pulled from old cloth. Knot it tight, so it does not slip. Place the fabric upon your lap, worn place turned upward. Stitch slowly, crossing the tier with small lines. Knot again, cut with a small blade, smooth the seam with your finger. A garment may carry dozens of such stitches, patches upon patches, until the original cloth is a memory. Marta calls it a history of meals and days, sewn into the very sleeves. Gertrude mutters that too many patches make a fool's coat, though she wears one herself. Gentle dilemma: wash or wait. The stream is cold, your hands raw, and the pile of dirty garments grows higher. Do you force yourself to wash them now, risk the ache in your fingers, or do you wait for a warmer day, risk the stairs at church when your children's tunics smell of sweat? No answer is certain. Some women endure the cold, their hands cracking with frost. Others wait, their neighbors muttering behind them. Either way, the burden is yours to carry. Historians suggest that women bore not just the labor of clothing, but the judgment it carried. To appear in church in soiled garments was a mark not only against you but against your household. The colors of ordinary life. Most garments are undyed, simple browns and greys, yet sometimes color enters the village like a sudden burst. A cloak dyed green with woad, a shift edged faintly in red, a ribbon tied at a girl's sleeve. Colors carry meaning. Blue whispers of devotion, red of festivity, green of spring. To peasants even faint color marks a moment of pride, a festival day, a wedding, a christening. Tom Owl Spiller once dyed his cap with crushed berries. It faded to brown in days, but he wore it proudly until Gertrude muttered it looked like mold. Cadence 2. The cloak dries slowly by the fire. The patched seam holds firm, and the house sighs into quiet. The texture of linen. Linen shifts rest beneath wool, close to the skin. In summer they are light, though still rough, woven unevenly, with knots that scratch against your side. In winter they cling damp beneath heavier garments, holding sweat and chill. You rub the fabric between your fingers. It is coarse, smelling faintly of flax and it softens with age, though it never truly becomes gentle. Linen is comfort only in comparison to wool, yet it is necessary, the first shield between skin and the world. Historians note that women in particular bore the labor of linen spinning, weaving, bleaching and stitching. A single shift might take months to prepare, from flax pulled in fields to cloth upon a body. Each garment was time itself, worn day after day. Mini-story: the lost cloak. One winter evening, Tom Owl Spiller stumbled home without his cloak, claiming it had vanished in the tavern. For days he shivered, wrapped in rags, until Marta laughed that he had likely traded it for ale. Gertrude muttered that cloaks do not walk away by themselves. A cloak, more than simple cloth, was survival. To lose one was to risk sickness, to court death in frost. The reeve noted the loss in his role, not as theft but as foolishness. Tom wore a patched blanket until spring. The tale lived longer than the cloak itself. Step by step, drying and storing. Once clothes are washed, they must be dried, then stored against damp. Spread them upon bushes in sunlight, if the day is fair. In rain, hang them near the hearth, turning often to avoid scorch. Fold when dry, stack upon shelves of rough wood. Lay herbs, lavender, thyme, wormwood, between garments to keep moth away, cover with cloth to shield from soot and smoke. The smell lingers, fresh air if dried outside, smoke if dried in, herbs if laid with care. Each garment carries its storage with it, a scent that follows the wearer. Cadence 3, the herbs fade into cloth, the fire hums, and the garments rest folded in the hush of the night. Moral weight in fabric. Clothing is not only warmth, it is identity, status, dignity. A woman's kirtle marks her household. A patched sleeve may bring pity, or scorn, or both. A clean shift on Sunday signals respect, not just for God, but for the village itself. The moral dilemmas of fabric are quiet, but constant. Repair or replace, wash now or wait, wear plain or risk fine color. Each choice is judged, not always allowed, but always noticed. Historians remind us that clothing, though seldom preserved, appears again and again in records of law and faith. It mattered, not just to cover the body but to shape how the body was seen. The final layer. At night, you fold your cloak beside your bed. It is damp at the hem, heavy with smoke, yet it is your shield against the chill. You slip out of your kirtle, but the shift remains, worn through the night as in the day. Clothing is never absent, it is as constant as breath. Marta calls from her doorway, her hair smelling faintly of hay. Gertrude mutters about wool stretched too thin. Tom stumbles by, his patched blanket trailing. The village settles, each garment folded, hung or worn, each marking the household it belongs to. Cadence 4, closing. The cloak folds, the seam holds, and the night settles into stillness, wrapping you in fabric as the stars drift overhead. Faith and festivals, a rhythm beyond toil. The day begins not with the crow of the rooster, but with the sound of bells. They drift across the fields, slow and steady, a pattern that folds into the morning like a lullaby. The air is cool, the mist still clings to hedgerows, and yet the bells insist. It is Sunday, or a feast day, or one of the many holy days scattered across the year. The rhythm of work is broken, and another rhythm takes its place. The smell of incense already lingers in your memory, though you have not yet stepped inside the church. It mingles with the scent of damp cloaks and the faint tang of wood. Your shift clings to your skin, and your cloak feels heavy, but the bells call you all the same. The myth of endless labor. It is easy to imagine peasants bound to fields without pause, never free from the bend of soil and the weight of tools. Yet records show a different rhythm. Feast days, holy days, and Sundays interrupted the toil. A medieval year could hold more than 60 such pauses, sometimes over 100 depending on region and devotion. Historians note that labor was broken often, not always in rest, but in ritual. Some of these days were heavy with prayer, others with food, still others with dance. To say peasants only toiled is to miss the truth. They also feasted, prayed and wandered in processions that turned the village into something larger than itself. Step by step, preparing for mass, the church bells grow louder, and you gather your household to walk the lane. Preparing for mass follows an order, as steady as tilling a field. Wash hands and face, even if the water is cold. Shake out garments, brush away visible dirt. Tie cloaks, straighten shifts, smooth hair with damp fingers. Walk together, for to miss mass without reason invites whispers. Enter quietly, dip fingers in holy water, cross forehead, chest, shoulders. The smell of incense greets you at the door. Candles flicker against walls painted with saints' faces. The floor is packed earth, cool beneath your feet, scattered with straw. Voices murmur, then hush, as the priest begins. Marta Strawhair stands near you, her hair as unruly as ever, though today tucked beneath a kerchief. Gertrude mutters prayers aloud, louder than needed, her voice rising above others. Tom Ale Spiller shifts uneasily, perhaps regretting last night's drink, his cloak smelling faintly of ale, incense, bells and murmured Latin. The mass unfolds in slow rhythm. Bells chime, smoke drifts, words in Latin roll forward, half understood, half absorbed as music rather than meaning. You kneel, rise, kneel again. The smell of beeswax from candles thickens the air. The sound of coughing children mixes with whispered prayer. You cannot follow every word, but you know the pattern. Stand, kneel, cross, bow. It is less about understanding than about belonging. Historians remark that the rhythm of the Mass shaped memory itself, a structure carried through years even when words were foreign. Cadence 1. The incense curls, the bells echo, and the prayers drift upward into the cool air of the nave. The feast after Mass. When Mass ends, the day often bends into something else. A feast, a gathering, a breaking of bread not in duty but in joy. On saints' days, tables stretch long with loaves, cheese, ale, and sometimes meat.
Children chase one another in the lane. Dogs linger for scraps. Marta straw hair dances clumsily, skirts swaying, hair escaping from its kerchief. Gertrude mutters that the saints frown upon such frivolity, though her lips twitch as if holding back a smile. Tom ale spiller pours ale too freely, laughing as it splashes upon the earth. The smell is of roasted meat if fortune allows, of bread fresh from the oven, of ale foaming in jugs. The sound is laughter, song, the thump of feet upon packed earth. Mini story, the dancing plague. You recall a tale told often at such gatherings, the dancing plague of 1518, when villagers in Strasbourg danced without pause for days, some until they collapsed. Historians still debate whether it was hysteria, sickness, or something else. To peasants it became a cautionary tale. Dance when the feast calls you, but not beyond reason. Marta swears she could dance for days if ale flows. Gertrude mutters she could dance for hours if gossip flowed. Tom insists he once danced a whole night, though no one remembers it that way. The quiet of pilgrimage. Not every holy rhythm is loud. Some are quiet, drawn out across miles. A pilgrimage might take villagers far beyond their fields, to a shrine said to heal, to a saint's relic, to a holy well. Step by step, a pilgrimage unfolds. Gather food for the journey, bread, cheese, dried peas. Carry a staff, both for walking and for warding stray dog. Join neighbors, for pilgrims walk in groups. Walk steadily, stopping at chapels, leaving offerings of candles or coins. Return weeks later, weary but with stories that fold into the village. Historians note that pilgrimage was both faith and leisure, an excuse for travel in a life otherwise bound to fields. Some went far to Canterbury or Santiago, most stayed near to local shrines. Either way it was a pause from labor, a weaving of faith into journey. Cadence 2. The staff taps the road, the candles flicker in chapels, and the road stretches onward beneath weary feet. The trial of the rooster. Festivals sometimes brought strange justice. You recall the tale of a rooster put on trial for laying an egg. The village feared it was not a rooster's egg, but a demon's. Judges listened, clerks wrote, the rooster crowed in protest. In the end it was condemned, though whether it was truly guilty no one knew. Such animal trials sound absurd, yet records confirm them. Pigs tried for theft, cows accused of trampling, even insects excommunicated for eating crops. To the medieval mind, the world of law and faith extended beyond humans. Gertrude mutters it was a waste of parchment. Marta swears she would defend her chickens against any judge. Gentle dilemma, work or rest. On some feast days, you feel the pull of the field. Crops wait, weeds spread, grain ripens. Yet bells call, neighbors walk to church, and the priest frowns on absence. Do you sneak to the field, tend quietly, or do you rest, trust that the saints will guard your harvest another day? It is not a question of law, but of balance. Faith against hunger, community against solitude. Some choose one, some the other, but all feel the weight. Historians suggest that such dilemmas shaped the rhythm of medieval time. Labor was not constant, but broken by devotion, by fear, by joy. Cadence 3. The bells fall silent, the fields wait patient, and the choice rests quietly in your hands. Processions through the village. On special days, processions wound through the lanes. Priests carried relics, banners unfurled, villagers followed with candle. The smell of beeswax and incense filled the air. Songs rose, slow and steady, Latin words half mumbled, but fully felt. Children scattered flowers, dogs barked at the noise, and neighbors glanced at one another to be sure no one lingered at home. To walk in the procession was to be seen, to belong. To stay behind was to be noticed, and not kindly. Marta carried flowers, sometimes weeds mistaken for blossoms. Gertrude muttered that weeds honored saints as well as roses. Tom carried a candle that always seemed to drip more wax than others. Mini story. The miracle of the well. A tale is told of a well in a nearby village, said to cure fevers. Women brought cloths dipped in its water, pressed them to children's brows, whispered prayers. Some claimed healing, others muttered death. Historians note such wells dotted Europe, blending pagan roots with Christian faith. Whether the water healed or not mattered less than the belief it could. To hope was itself a form of relief. The return to ordinary days. When the festival ends, when the feast is eaten, when the procession fades, you return to your field. The soil waits, unchanged, yet something lingers. The rhythm of prayer, the memory of laughter, the faint echo of bells. The field feels lighter, if only for a day. The body bends again, but the spirit bends less. Festivals are not escapes, but pauses, breaths drawn in the long rhythm of toil. Cadence 4, closing. The bells grow distant, the incense fades, and the night folds back into silence, carrying you once more toward rest. Rules of the village, customs and codes. The village is not only soil and sweat, it is also rules, quiet, steady, rarely written but always remembered. They hold the place together as tightly as rope binds a bundle of sticks. You may think of peasants as free to live as they wished, but every action, from when to light a fire, to how much wood to gather, falls beneath the weight of custom. These customs are not iron chains, they are threads, invisible yet strong, binding neighbor to neighbor, tenant to lord, and all to the rhythm of the year. The sound of curfew bells. At dusk the church bell tolls again, not for prayer, this time, but for curfew. Its sound spreads across the fields, slow and heavy, calling not to gather but to settle. Fires must be banked, doors closed, voices lowered. The bell is both a sound and a rule, reminding all that the night belongs to silence. You stand in your doorway, listen. The air carries the smell of wood smoke and damp earth. The light fades, fields blur into shadow. The bell insists, enough noise, enough movement. A cow still lowing outside the gate is forgiven. A neighbor shouting across the lane is the myth of lawless peasants. It is tempting to imagine peasants as wild, answerable only to hunger, living without order, yet records show otherwise. Manorial courts met often, sometimes every few weeks. They heard cases of pigs straying, of hedges cut too short, of men who drank too loudly past curfew. Fines were small but frequent, a penny here, a loaf there. Order was maintained not by gallows but by parchment, by ink, by muttered warning. Historians note that peasants created and enforced many of their own customs. The Lord's Reeve recorded them, but neighbors judged them. To live in a village was to live inside a net of quiet rule. Step by step, a manorial court day. When the bailiff calls the court, villagers gather in the manorial hall. The air smells of wax and damp wood, the benches creak beneath worn bodies. The reeve unrolls parchment, dips quill in ink, and the day begins. Tabor names are called, attendance marked, complaints are read aloud, hedges broken, pigs loose, debts unpaid. Witnesses speak, voices quiet, sometimes muttering, sometimes clear. The steward speaking for the Lord declares judgment. Fines are noted, pennies, bread, sometimes a chicken. The roll is closed, the seal pressed, the day moves on. It is not drama, it is not thunder. It is slow, steady, sleepy, yet it shapes the rhythm of village life as much as seed and harvest. Marta, Gertrude, and Tom in court. Marta, Strawhair, once brought a case, claiming Gertrude's grandson let his pigs trample her bean. She waved her arms, hair scattering like hay, insisting each bean was worth more than silver. Gertrude muttered steadily, saying beans grow again, while pigs do not. Tom our spiller laughed too loudly, claiming he saw the pigs dance among the stores. The steward fined Gertrude's household a penny, though some whispered Marta had exaggerated. The record notes only beans destroyed, fine paid. The muttering and laughter, of course, went unrecorded. Cadence 1. The ink dries slowly, the candles gutter, and the voices fade into the wooden beams of the hall. Quiet laws of village life. Some rules are not written at all, yet they are followed as firmly as those in parchment. Do not take wood from another's hedge, even if your fire dies. Share oven space fairly. Smoke betrays greed. Speak softly after the bell, unless to soothe a child. Keep your animals tied. Stray beasts, invite mutters. Return borrowed tools sharper than you received them. Do not let your well run foul, for neighbors drink from it too. Always give a crust to a beggar, lest hunger visit your own table. Never question the mutters of Gertrude too loudly, she has a way of being right. These rules are not signed by lords, not sealed by wax. They live in whispers, in looks, in mutters, in the tilt of a neighbor's head. Gentle dilemma, bend or obey. One evening your child asks for another stick for the fire. The woodpile is gone, and the hedgerow of your neighbor looks inviting, branches stretching just within reach. The curfew bell has rung, the lane is quiet. Do you break a twig small enough to go unnoticed, or do you leave the hearth to cool, trusting blankets to hold the warmth? Neither choice is grand, neither choice will echo in chronicles, yet such small dilemmas form the quiet heart of peasant life. Mini story. The pig who broke curfew. Once Tom's pig wandered at night, snuffling loudly in the lane. The curfew bell had long faded, and voices rose from houses. The court met the next week, fined Tom 2 pennies, and declared the pig a nuisance. Tom laughed, saying the pig only sought ale. Gertrude muttered it was wiser than its master. The roll recorded, pig in lane past curfew, fine 2 pennies. The humour, as always, slipped between the lines. Cadence 2. The pig snuffles into silence, the fire cools in its hearth, and the lane rests beneath the weight of the curfew bell. The smell of ink and parchment. Inside the manorial hall the smell is thick, ink, wax, old wood. The quill scratches across parchment, each stroke slow, deliberate. The sound is steady, almost soothing. A lifetime of complaints becomes a neat column of words. To the reeve it is simply record. To the villagers, it is memory, proof, and warning. Historians treasure such rolls, for they preserve the voices of peasants otherwise lost. A fine for beans, a complaint about pigs, a note of late rent, each a fragment of life. They tell us less of lords and kings, and more of Martha, Gertrude, Tom, and all who lived in such villages. The tax of tithes. Another rule rests beyond the Lord, the tithe to the church. Each household owes 1/10 of grain, of lambs, of eggs. The priest collects, stores and redistributes. Some mutter that he keeps more than he gives. Gertrude insists the saints notice every missing grain. Martha claims she once gave beans instead of barley, and the priest never noticed. Tom jokes he would tithe ale if allowed, though no one laughs when the priest is near. Historians remind us that tithes were not always taken gently. Disputes filled rolls, fines followed, debts lingered. Yet still each year, grain was weighed, lambs counted, eggs carried to the church, step by step paying rent. Rent too must be paid, not always in coin but often in labor or goods. Gather the measure of grain or beans, carry it to the hall, sack rough against your shoulder, pour into the Lord's store, watching the steward measure carefully, sign with words, or with silence, for the record is made by the reeve. Walk home lighter in goods, heavier in thought. The sound is steady, grain pouring, sacks rustling, quills scratch. The smell is sharp, dust rising, sweat lingering, wax cooling. Cadence 3. The grain pours steady, the parchment curls at its edge, and the hall grows quiet as the records close. Myth versus reality. Harsh or gentle. You may think the rules were cruel, lords harsh, peasants crushed. Sometimes yes, but often the fines were small, the judgments light, the customs designed less to break than to bend. A penny here, a loaf there, a mutter always. The weight was steady, not unbearable, unless harvest failed. Historians debate whether peasants lived under oppression or order. The truth lies in between, neither free nor fully bound, neither joyous nor crushed, but steady, ordinary, shaped by rules as familiar as weather.
The final silence. When night deepens, when the last embers fade, when even Gertrude's mutters have stilled, the rules remain. They rest in memory, in whispers, in rolls, stored in the manorial chest. Tomorrow they will rise again, in bells, in mutters, in fines. They shape the village, not with iron, but with habit, not with swords, but with parchment. You breathe slowly, cloak folded, fire low, curfew bell silent. Now, the village rests inside its rules, as steady as soil beneath your feet. Cadence 4. Closing. The ink dries, the bell stills, and the night folds into its own law, carrying you gently towards sleep. Marriage, family, and neighborly ties. The rhythm of life, in the medieval village, is not only measured in fields and harvests, but also in households, in marriages made, in children raised, and in the bonds that link neighbors one to another. The soil sustains the body, but family and community sustain the spirit, whether in joy, in tension, or in the ordinary stretches of daily companionship. The myth of arranged silence. You may have heard that peasants had no choice in marriage, that matches were imposed without voice. The truth, as records suggest, is soft parents guided, yes, and lords sometimes approved unions for tenants. But men and women often chose partners within their village, among those they knew from childhood. It was less romance, more practicality, yet affection could grow, and companionship could last. Court rolls even note cases where women refused matches, or where couples married without consent, and later sought forgiveness. Marriage was not a fairy tale, nor was it a prison. It was a framework, woven from duty, hope, and necessity. Step by step, a village betrothal. When two families agree to join, the process follows a familiar rhythm. Families meet, often over bread and ale. Terms are discussed: what dowry, what land, what livestock will accompany the bride. Witnesses are present, neighbors listening closely, hands are joined, words spoken aloud. A small gift is exchanged, a coin, a loaf, a jug of ale, to mark agreement. No parchment is needed, though sometimes one is written. The memory of neighbors is enough. The mutters of Gertrude the mutterer stronger than any ink. Marta Strawhair loves such days, her hair wilder than usual, as she leans close to catch every detail. She swears she knows who will marry next before even the families themselves. Tom Ale Spiller brings ale, too much ale, his laughter spilling faster than the drink. Gertrude mutters about foolishness, though she never misses a betrothal. Cadence 1, the bread breaks, the hands clasp, and the murmurs of neighbors drift softly into memory. The wedding day, the wedding itself is not splendid, it is simple, practical, yet marked with care. The church bell rings, villagers gather, cloaks brushed, kerchiefs tied. Flowers may be woven into garlands, children scatter petals along the path. The bride wears her best shift, perhaps a borrowed cloak, if her own is worn. The groom wears a tunic brushed clean, patched but tidy. Inside the church, vows are spoken before the priest. Outside, the feast begins, as grand as households can manage. Bread is stacked, ale flows, sometimes a pig is roasted, sometimes only beans. Music, if any, comes from a pipe, or fiddle, more likely from the rhythm of clapping hands. Marta dances until her hair falls loose. Gertrude mutters about the waste of bread, though she eats 2 slices. Tom drinks until his song slurs. The smell is of bread, roasted meat, and damp wool pressed together. The sound is laughter, clinking cups, children shrieking in play. Gentle dilemma, marry for land, or affection. In whispers, villagers debate, is it better to marry for land, for a strip of soil that feeds, or to marry for affection, for laughter that warms but does not fill bellies? Some choose one, some the other, but all must weigh the question. Historians remind us that peasants were practical, yet not heartless. Many couples were formed from proximity, yes, but affection often followed. Records of court disputes even show husbands defending wives fiercely, wives managing land with strength. The choice was not always romance, not always duty, but some blend, quiet and steady. Daily family rhythms. Once the wedding is past, the household settles into routine. The family table grows louder, the chores more divided, the days filled with tasks. Children sweep the hearth, feed chickens, fetch water. Women tend the pot, mend clothes, spin wool. All gather for meals, all share in labor, all sleep close beneath the same roof. The sounds are steady, broom brushing stone, spoon striking pot, whetstone rasping iron. The smells are constant, smoke, stew, wool damp from rain. Touch is always near, wool scratch, straw prick, skin warm against skin at night. Marta swears children grow quicker when fed beans. Gertrude mutters they grow quicker when fed silence. Tom insists they grow quicker when given ale, though no one allows him to prove it. Cadence 2, the broom rests, the pot simmers, and the small house breathes softly in rhythm with its family. Mini story, the gossip of the lane. One morning, Marta claims she saw a widow's daughter meeting a man by the hedge. She whispers it in the lane, hair waving like banners. Gertrude mutters that Marta's eyes see more than truth. Tom laughs that if meetings by hedges were forbidden, half the village would be fined. By week's end, the manorial court notes, unlawful meeting, fine 1 penny. The ink records only the fact, the gossip lingers far longer. The touch of neighbors. Neighbors are not distant, walls are thin, fields are shared, ovens communal. You hear your neighbors cough at night, their rooster in the morning, their mutters through the lane. Secrets are few, bonds strong, though sometimes sharp. Step by step, neighbors share life, borrow a tool, return it sharper, share oven heat, divide bread fairly, watch one another's children warn of stray animals, help with harvest, receive help in return. Gossip, argue, reconcile, repeat. The smell of bread from Marta's oven drifts into your own. The sound of Gertrude's muttering echoes across your hearth. Tom's laughter spills from the tavern, carried by night air. You cannot live without them, even if sometimes you wish to. Gentle dilemma, share secrets or stay silent. A neighbor asks you quietly about your stores, how much grain remains, whether you will slaughter a pig this winter. To answer is to invite gossip, perhaps requests for help. To stay silent is to seem cold, unfriendly. You weigh the choice. Share, and risk whispers. Stay silent and risk distance. Neither choice is grand, but both matter in a village where everyone watches. Cadence 3. The gossip fades, the laughter softens, and the lane folds into the stillness of night. The aging of bonds. Over years, marriages stretch, families grow, neighbors change. Children take on chores once yours, their hands small but eager. Parents stoop lower, mutters grow slower. A widow takes in her daughter's children. A son marries, and builds a hut by the hedge. A cousin moves after a quarrel. Historians suggest that continuity and change shaped medieval villages. Families remained, but always in flux, ties woven and rewoven like fabric patched upon fabric. Martha still gossips, Gertrude still mutters, Tom still spills ale, but children replace children, and the rhythm continues. Mini-story: the quarrel over ale. At one feast, Tom Ale Spiller accused a neighbor of watering ale. Voices rose, fists nearly followed. Gertrude muttered about sins of drunkenness. Martha laughed so hard her hair tangled in her cup. By week's end, the court fined Tom a penny for disturbing peace. The ale, watered or not, was drunk all the same. The record shows, disturbance at feast, fine paid. The laughter and mutters never left the lane. The household bed. At night, the family gathers in the same room, sometimes in the same bed. Children press close, warmth shared against the cold. Wool blankets scratch, straw pricks, but bodies soften the chill. The smell is of sweat, smoke and wool. The sound is of breathing, steady, sometimes punctuated by a cough, sometimes by a mutter even in sleep. Marriage is not romance in such nights. It is companionship, shared warmth, shared labor, shared survival. Cadence 4. Closing. The straw shifts, the wool scratches, and the night holds family and neighbors alike in its slow, patient rhythm. Illness, remedies, and quiet endurance. The body bends with labor, and the body breaks with time. In the medieval village, illness is as constant as hunger, as patient as the seasons. Coughs linger through winter, fevers rise with summer, aches follow every day in the fields. Yet life continues, carried by remedies, simple and quiet, by muttered prayers, by herbs gathered at the hedge. The smell of smoke lingers in the house, and with it the sound of a child's cough. It rattles faintly, a sound too familiar. You draw your cloak tighter, and consider what can be done. There is no physician here, no hospital, only what the village remembers, what women pass down, what neighbors mutter. There were no modern cures, no sure remedies, yet there was knowledge of herbs, of poultices, of honey and garlic, of charms whispered over wounds. Some worked, some did not, but all carried hope. Historians remind us that medieval households kept gardens not only for food, but for healing. Records speak of sage, thyme, rosemary, plantain. Manuscripts list remedies of honey and vinegar, of onion and garlic. Archaeology finds jars that once held ointments, mortars worn smooth from grinding herbs. Medicine was not absent, only simple. Step by step, preparing garlic salve. The cough grows louder, and so you prepare what you can. Take cloves of garlic, their smell sharp, burning at the nose. Crush them upon a flat stone, the sound a steady crack. The paste pungent. Mix with lard or butter, stirring slowly until thick. Spread upon cloth, rough linen softened by oil. Bind gently upon the chest, the warmth easing breath. The smell fills the house, sharp and heavy. Martha Strawhair insists garlic drives away, not only illness but evil itself. Gertrude mutters that garlic drives away neighbors more quickly than demons. Tom Ale Spiller claims garlic mixed with ale could cure even heartbreak, though no one volunteers to test it. Cadence 1. The salve warms, the cough softens, and the night folds quietly around the small fire. A fever in honey. Fever comes with summer, when water turns foul and insects spread. The body grows hot, sweat dampens the shift, eyes glaze. For this, honey is brought, sweet, thick, golden, stored in jars hidden away for such moments. Step by step, the remedy unfolds. Warm a spoon of honey until it thins. Stir with vinegar, sharp and sour. Add sage leaves, their smell earthy. Sip slowly, let the sweetness coat the throat, the sourness cool the body. The taste is strange, not pleasant, yet soothing. Honey is precious, not used lightly. A dilemma rests. Do you use it now for fever that may pass, or save it for wounds where it heals more surely? Historians note that honey appears often in remedies, prized for its sweetness and for its healing. Some recipes call it the gift of bees, its use both sacred and practical. Mini story: the village healer.
There is always one woman known for healing more than others. In this village, it is Agnes, who gathers herbs at dawn, muttering prayers as she pulls roots. Some call her wise, some call her dangerous. When illness passes, she is praised. When it lingers, whispers of witchcraft rise. Court rolls record such women often, sometimes fined, sometimes tolerated, sometimes condemned. Yet without them, who would tend the sick? Knowledge is heavy, and suspicion heavier. Agnes walks between both, basket in hand. Gentle dilemma, herbs or coin. A fever lingers. You weigh the choice, trust the herbs at hand, or walk to the town, spend coin at the apothecary. Coin is scarce, herbs are uncertain. Which path brings health? Which path brings regret? The apothecary sells powders, colored and bitter, wrapped in parchment. Some believe they work, others say they are no better than weeds. The decision is quiet, made not with certainty, but with hope. Cadence 2. The fever burns, the honey soothes, and the room settles into slow breaths once more. Neighbors gather, midwives whisper prayers, charms are tied at bedposts. A child may arrive safely, or both mother and child may fade. Step by step, the midwife guides. Warm water is fetched, cloth laid ready, hands washed in ash soap, prayers muttered. Herbs burn to scent the air, ward away evil. The mother breathes, the midwife soothes, the neighbors wait. If child cries, relief. If silence, sorrow. Historians remind us that childbirth was dangerous, yet not always hopeless. Many children lived, many mothers endured. Survival was not rare, but risk was constant. Marta Strawhair swears nettle tea eases labor. Gertrude mutters that no tea eases what is given by God. Tom Ale Spiller waits outside, claiming ale is needed for nerves, though no one believes he waits for anyone but himself. The smell of healing herbs. The cottage fills with the smell of herbs hung from rafters, sage, rosemary, thyme, lavender. Their scents mix with smoke, with wool, with damp. Some heal, some only soothe, all remind you that care is constant. The touch of leaves is rough, crumbling between fingers. The sound of grinding herbs in a mortar is steady, stone against stone. The sight of jars lined upon a shelf gives comfort, even if their contents are uncertain. Historians note that herbs were part of every household. Gardens grew not only beans and onions, but also simples, plants for remedies. To live without them was unthinkable. Cadence 3. The herbs hang drying, the smoke curls upward, and the night grows softer with their fading scent. Mini story. The cursed cow. One spring, a cow sickened, its milk curdling, its breath labored. Neighbors whispered of curse. Gertrude muttered that Marta's careless singing soured the air. Tom claimed it was ale spilled in the trough. The healer Agnes mixed garlic and sage, tied charms at the stall. The cow lived, though no one agreed why. Court rolls sometimes note such tales. Animals healed or lost, charms tried, remedies attempted. The line between medicine and magic was thin, walked daily by those who had little else. Quiet endurance. Illness does not vanish quickly. It lingers, it nags, it passes slowly or not at all. Peasants endure. They rise with coughs, work with aches, walk with fevers. There is no choice but to continue, each day measured in what can still be done. Historians write of mortality, of life expectancy, of numbers, but behind numbers are sighs, mutters, and quiet strength. Endurance is the true medicine, learned by all. Cadence 4. Closing. The cough fades, the fever cools, and the embers glow faintly, as sleep drifts once again into the room. Winters and hard years. The year turns, and the fields grow silent beneath frost. The earth hardens, the trees stand bare, and the air itself feels sharp, cutting at the skin with every breath. Winter in the medieval village is not a pause, but a test. It asks not for speed but for patience, not for strength, but for endurance. Inside the cottage, your breath drifts in pale mist, even with the fire burning low. The straw beneath your feet crackles faintly, brittle with cold. Cloaks are drawn tighter, blankets layered, yet still the chill seeps through stone and wood. The smell of smoke lingers, heavy and damp, clinging to wool and hair. The myth of starving always. It is easy to imagine peasants starving every winter, huddled in misery. The truth is quieter. Some winters were kind, some harsh, some bellies were filled, some went empty. Famine was not constant, but it came often enough to be remembered. Records speak of dear years when grain prices doubled, when bread grew thin. Yet in ordinary winters peasants endured with rationing, with sharing, with patience. Historians remind us that medieval villagers were skilled in survival. Grain was stored, beans dried, meat salted, wood gathered. It was never abundance, but it was enough unless the harvest failed, unless frost lingered, unless misfortune pressed too hard. Step by step, banking the fire. The fire is the heart of winter survival. Each night it must be banked, coaxed to last until dawn. Pull ash forward, covering the faint red glow. Lay small cinders in a cross, finger width apart. Add a thin layer of coal or wood, not too heavy. Close the vent of the hearth slightly, let air in, only enough to keep life. Leave the fire to smolder, hidden, until morning breathes it awake. The sound is soft, ash shifting, wood sighing, a faint click as coal settle. The smell is sharp, half-burnt wood, smoke curling into the rafters. To wake to a fire still alive is relief. To wake to cold ash is dread. The problem of firewood. Wood is scarce. Forests belong to the Lord, hedgerows to neighbor. You gather twigs, branches fallen in wind, brush from ditches. The best wood is oak, but it is rare. Often it is hazel, ash, or whatever can be found. Martyr Strawhair swears by burning dried dung, claiming it warms as well as wood. Gertrude mutters that dung warms nothing but the smell. Tom Owl Spiller insists ale warms better than any log, though he is always cold. Court rolls record fines for wood theft. Men caught cutting branches at night, women gathering brush where they should not. The punishment is small, a penny or two, but the shame lingers. Yet cold makes bold, and many risk the mutters for one more armful of wood. Cadence 1. The embers sigh, the logs crack softly, and the night deepens beneath its blanket of frost. Each sack must last until spring, stretched carefully, guarded closely. Step by step, grain is rationed, measure by scoop, not by handful. Grind only what is needed, never more. Mix barley with oats, stretch with beans. Bake bread smaller, slice thinner, dip in broth to soft. Store sacks high, away from damp, away from rats. The sound is of stone grinding against stone, steady, rough. The smell is of flour, faintly sour dust clinging to the air. Each loaf baked is a calculation. Eat enough to work, keep enough to live. Gentle dilemma, eat thin or feast once. Tonight, the pot holds thin pottage, stretched with water, flavored only with onions. You could add more grain, make it thick, fill bellies fully, but to do so risks tomorrow, risks the weeks ahead. Do you eat thin now, hunger gnawing, but survival steady, or feast once, warmth tonight, doubt tomorrow? Historians suggest this dilemma was constant. Households measured not just food but risk. Some feasted early, hoping for kindness later. Some starved early, saving for worst day. Both paths carried fear, both carried hope. Mini story, the hard winter of 1315. Records speak of the great famine of 1315, 1317, when rain drowned fields, when grain rotted, when hunger spread. Chronicles tell of horses eaten, dogs stolen, bark stripped from trees. Yet even then, some villages endured with sharing, with foraging, with quiet strength. In our village, memory lingers of a winter less harsh, but still heavy. Bread grew small, meat vanished, but neighbors shared. Martyr gave beans, Gertrude muttered, and gave herbs. Tom gave ale, thinner each week. Survival came not from plenty, but from patience together. Cadence 2. The pot simmers low, the grain settles slow, and the frost creeps gently along the beams above. The sound of frost. Frost itself has a sound. It cracks faintly underfoot, crunches when straw is pressed against. Icicles creak as they form, water stiffening in slow silence. At night, rafters groan, shrinking in the cold. Your own breath whispers louder, clouding the air. The touch of frost is sharper still. It bites at fingers, stiffens cloth, turns water to glass. Blankets scratch, cloaks grow heavy, yet still the cold seeps in, patient, unhurried, endless. Step by step, surviving a cold night. Bank the fire as carefully as hands allow. Spread straw thick upon the floor, a shield against stone. Gather children close, press warmth together. Wrap cloaks, layer wool, pull blankets high. Breathe slowly, let sleep carry you through the frost. The sounds are soft, children sighing, straw shifting, fire whispering. The smell is of wool, smoke and damp earth. Mini story, the stolen sack. One winter, a sack of grain vanished from the store. Whispers filled the lane. Gertrude muttered, that hunger makes thieves of all. Marta swore she saw Tom stumbling with a heavy load. Tom laughed too loudly, claimed he carried only air. The court fined no one. The sack was never found, yet each loaf baked after carried a shadow, the weight of mistrust. Hunger not only weakens the body, it frays the threads between neighbor. Cadence 3. The straw shifts, the breath clouds, and the night holds steady in its slow, patient cold. Sharing and silence. Some households share food with neighbors, some keep silent. A crust offered today may return tomorrow, but it may also vanish without return. Marta insists, sharing is blessed. Gertrude mutters it is foolish. Tom insists he would share ale, if only he had more. Historians note that famine years saw both generosity and theft. Charity and suspicion lived side by side, each shaped by hunger's edge. The hope of spring. Winter is not endless. Beneath the frost, seeds wait. Beneath the silence, the soil breathes. Each day survived is one step closer to thaw. Bells ring the same, mutters echo the same, ale spills the same. The village endures not with joy, not with despair, but with quiet patience. Cadence 4. Closing. The frost fades, the fire sighs, and the dawn creeps pale across the thatched roof, carrying you gently into another day. Small joys and forgotten pleasures. The fields demand, the hearth requires, the rules bind, and illness wait. Yet life is not only labor and worry. Between long days and heavy seasons, there are moments small, quiet, nearly forgotten, where joy enters the village. It does not roar, it does not blaze. It drifts like smoke, soft, ordinary and real. You sit upon a low stool, the day's work behind you, and for the first time the stillness feels like leisure. Children chase geese outside, their laughter uneven, their steps clumsy. The smell of roasting chestnuts drifts faintly from the hearth, though only a few are in the pan. The sound of a pipe carries from the lane, simple, halting, yet enough to draw smiles. The myth of joyless peasants. It is tempting to think of peasants as joyless, bent always to toil, yet records and tales suggest otherwise. Feast days were common, songs lingered, games filled long evenings. Court rolls even note fines for excessive laughter, or for disturbing neighbors with song. If joy were absent, such fines would never be written. Historians point to carvings on spoons, to whistles cut from reeds, to rhymes preserved in fragments. Peasants laughed, sang, carved and gossiped. Their pleasures were small, but no less real. Step by step carving a spoon. After supper you take a piece of wood, smooth in some places, rough in others. With a small knife you begin to carve. Hold the wood steady, grain running lengthwise. Shave slowly, thin curls falling onto your lap. Hollow the bowl, scraping carefully, shaping curve by curve. Smooth edges with cloth or with your own thumb, pressing patiently. Hold it up to the firelight, check its shape, smile faintly at its uneven charm. The smell is sharp, fresh wood mingling with smoke. The sound is the soft rasp of blade against grain. The touch is warm, rough, turning smooth beneath your fingers. Marta's straw hair, insist spoons carved on feast days, stir pottage sweeter. Gertrude mutters that no spoon changes the taste of bean. Tom ale spiller jokes that his spoons always leak, though the fault lies in his carving more than the wood. Cadence 1. The knife rests, the wood curls scatter, and the fire hums softly in the corner of the room. A simple song drifts, words familiar to all, a verse about grain, a rhyme about saints, a line about foolish neighbors. The melody is plain, yet it lingers. Songs are not performed, they are shared, sung while working, hummed while stirring pots, shouted while children play. Some are nonsense, some are prayers, some are both. Court rolls even record disputes when songs mocked neighbors too sharply. Marta sings loudly, voice wandering. Gertrude mutters through her verses, claiming saints tire of poor tune. Tom sings loudest of all, though always a beat behind, his voice spilling like ale. Mini story, the goose chase. One autumn afternoon, a goose escaped from Gertrude's yard. Children chased it through the lane, shouting, laughing. Marta claimed it was a sign of luck. Gertrude muttered curses until her breath failed. Tom tried to corner it with a jug of ale in hand, tripped and fell into the mud. The court noted, goose disturbed neighbors, fine 1 penny, yet the laughter lingered longer than the fire.
Step by step, making a whistle from a twig. Children gather near the hedge, cutting twigs, eager for sound. The process is simple, Pussy, cut a twig of willow, smooth and green, slice a notch. Careful not to cut too deep. Hollow the inside with a small blade, or by heating gently in the fire. Place lips to the notch, blow softly. Listen as the thin, uneven whistle pierces the air, proud despite its wobble. The sound is shrill, the children's laughter louder. The smell of fresh sap clings to their fingers. The feel is sticky, rough, but beloved. Cadence 2. The whistle fades, the laughter settles, and the geese wander back to their pen, in slow, quiet steps. The gossip of evenings. After the day's work, neighbors sit near hearths or linger in lanes. Voices low but steady. Gossip flows more easily than ale, though both often appear together. Who planted late, who harvested poorly, who whispered near the hedge. Stories stretch, bend, change with each retelling. Marta shares most, hair waving as she leans close. Gertrude mutters corrections, claiming truth where others invent. Tom listens, laughs, adds his own tales. Rarely true, always entertaining. Historians find traces of gossip even in rolls. Accusations of theft, rumors of curses, tales of forbidden meetings. Gossip bound the village as firmly as rules, shaping how neighbors thought of one another. Gentle dilemma, rest or chores. The evening grows late. The pot is washed, the hearth swept, the children asleep. You hold the choice. Sit upon the stool, let rest wash over you, or pick up the spindle, mend the torn cloak, tend to one more task. Rest risks judgment, chores risk exhaustion. You breathe, choose quietly, either way carrying the weight of duty and of self. Cadence 3. The spindle stills, the stool creaks, and the house folds into the hush of evening. Mini-story. The broken fiddle. One feast, Tom Ale Spiller borrowed a fiddle, swearing he could play. His song was uneven, his bow heavy. Strings snapped, neighbors laughed. Marta danced regardless. Gertrude muttered curses. Tom was fined a penny for damaging the fiddle. The record notes the fine, the laughter echoes long. The taste of small treats. On rare days, treats appear. Roasted chestnuts, apples baked in embers, honey spread thin on bread. The smells are sweet, rare, almost shocking. The taste lingers, remembered for days. Children speak of them long after they are gone. Historians remind us that even in scarcity, peasants sought flavor, delight. Recipes survive for spiced drinks, for fritters fried in oil. They were not daily, but they were treasured. The joy of silence. Not all pleasures are loud. Sometimes joy is silence. The fire low, the house quiet, the body still. A day of noise ends in a night of peace. The smell of smoke softens, the sound of mutters fades, the touch of wool is steady, the sight of embers silence is a forgotten pleasure, yet it lingers longest, carrying sleep in its folds. Cadence 4. Closing. The song fades, the pipe stills, and the candle drips slowly as the village drifts into rest. The passing of years, memory and legacy. Time in the medieval village is not marked only by bells or harvest. It is marked by the quiet passing of years, by the soft deepening of wrinkles, by the slow bend of backs. For peasant women, life is not a single season of labor, but a rhythm that stretches across decades, from childhood chores to old age mutters, from first garments of linen to last prayers whispered at the hearth. You wake one morning and realize the fields look different, though they are the same. The furrows stretch as they always have, but your steps into them are slower, your hands less certain on the hoe. The smell of earth is still rich, yet you breathe it with more care. The sound of bells is still steady, yet you hear them with a softer patience. The myth of short lives. It is often said that peasants rarely lived past 30. This too is a myth softened by truth. Life expectancy was low, yes, but dragged down by infant deaths, by sickness in childhood. Those who survived youth could and often did live into 50s or 60s, sometimes longer. Records of baptisms and burials show widows of 70, elders of 80, though bent and frail. Historians remind us that the peasant woman's years stretched farther than the myth suggests. They were years of toil, yes, but also of survival, of endurance, of memory. Step by step, the rhythm of age. Age does not end work, it reshapes it, softens it, slows it. Hands no longer plow, but they spin wool beside the fire. Feet no longer walk miles to fields, but they shuffle to the lane. Arms no longer lift sacks, but they cradle grandchildren. Eyes no longer follow weeds in furrows, but they watch the hearth flame. Lips no longer sing loudly, but they murmur stories from memory. The sound of labor fades, replaced by the hush of storytelling. The smell of herbs lingers, less for meals, more for easing aches. The touch of wool shifts from clothing to blankets, warmth for frailer bone. Cadence 1. The fire burns lower, the stool creaks beneath you, and the room folds into the hush of slow, steady breath. She still gossips, voice thinner, laughter lighter, her hands trembling as she points. Gertrude mutters more slowly, words drawn out like threads, though no less certain. Tom Owl Spiller still spills ale, though his steps falter sooner, his laughter followed by cough. The three remain, fixtures of the village, softened by years, yet unchanged in spirit. They remind you that time bends bodies, but not always habits. Emma's story, the parish roll. In the parish roll, names appear and vanish, baptisms written in careful ink, burials noted with crosses. One year shows 3 children gone in winter, another shows a woman buried in her 60th year, remembered kindly by neighbors. Such records do not capture laughter, mutters or spills, but they hold memory in lines of ink. Historians pore over such rolls, piecing together lives from fragments. To the village the memory lives longer, in stories whispered by hearths, in names muttered at feasts, in spoons carved by hands long gone. Gentle dilemma, rest or work still. Your hands ache, your back protests. The field calls, but so does the stool by the fire. Do you rise, work still though slower, or do you rest, trust children and neighbors to carry the weight? To rest may invite mutters of idleness, to work may bring pain. The choice is not grand, but it weighs quietly on each day. Cadence 2. The tools rest, the spindle hums, and the air folds into the rhythm of patient silence. You tell of winters past, of summers of plenty, of pigs that escaped, of geese that mocked, of beans that grew crooked. The stories are plain, yet they carry weight. Step by step storytelling flows. Add a jest, a mutter, a smile small but steady. Repeat for children demand the same tale again. End not with lesson, but with quiet, letting fire fill the rest. The sound is low, the smell of smoke heavy, the sight of flames dancing upon face. The touch of children leaning close reminds you of time passing, of threads woven across years. Mini story, the planted tree. One spring you plant a tree near the hedge, a small sapling of ash. Years pass, seasons turn, and it grows tall, casting shade upon the lane. Children climb its branches, neighbors rest beneath it. When you are gone, the tree remains, its roots holding memory. Such trees appear in records too, marked for disputes, measured for wood, noted in boundaries. Yet for families they were more, living legacies, shade for those to come. Cadence 3. The tree bends in wind, the fire hums low, and the night stretches in patient silence. The smell of old wool. Your cloak smells different now, older, heavier. The wool carries years of smoke, of damp, of wood. It scratches still, but its weight is familiar, comforting. Each patch sewn upon it is a memory, a winter endured, a feast attended, a field worked. The smell is not pleasant, not foul, but steady. It is the smell of years themselves, woven into fabric. Historians rarely preserve such garments, yet in fragments found in graves or bogs, the weight of time is visible still. Gentle dilemma, tell or keep. A child asks about your youth, about dances, about feasts, about times before their birth. Do you tell, share openly, risk laughter at your tales, or do you keep quiet, hold memory within, let it fade unspoken? To tell is to give legacy, to keep is to hold peace. Either choice is gentle, either choice is yours. Neighbors depart. One winter, Tom Owl Spiller does not rise. The parish roll marks his name, died in frost, buried with prayer. Marta weeps, Gertrude mutters softly, perhaps kindly for once. The lane feels quieter, the tavern dimmer, though his laughter lingers in memory. Another year Gertrude herself is gone, her mutters silenced, yet echoed in warnings children repeat. Marta alone remains, hair still wild, voice still sharp, though weaker now. Neighbors depart, one by one, until memory carries them more than some. Cadence 4. The names fade, the ink dries, and the night carries memory more than sound. Yet their legacy endures, in spoons carved, in children raised, in fields tended, in cloaks patched. Their names may vanish, but their labor remains, woven into soil, into memory,
into the rhythm of villages. Historians uncover fragments, court rolls, tax lists, bones in graves, seeds in pots. From these fragments they piece together lives, ordinary yet vital. Your life, quiet, patient, unseen by kings, is still the thread that binds the fabric of time. The final soft landing. The years fold like cloaks upon one another. You sit by the hearth, hands folded, eyes closed, listening to the fire hum. Outside, the fields wait, as always, the bells toll as always, the seasons turn as always. But for you the rhythm slows, softens, drifts. The smell of smoke fades, the sound of mutters and laughter drifts away. The touch of wool warms still, the sight of fire dims gently. The fire cools, the bell stills, the years pass quietly, and you drift into the long sleep of memory.